Hey everybody, we're back today and I have Dwyer Hansen with me. She's one of the co-authors of Ask. You can see the book right behind her. We're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes, but she has a really interesting background. I'm going to call it a little bit of behavior, a little bit of hypnotherapy. I'd love to pick your brain about that. But Crystal, would you mind just kind of giving us a background, sort of how you came to this point, what made you write the book, how you got into health?
Sure. So, first of all, I'm a transformational life coach, clinical hypnotherapist, really deep into all that stuff. I do, emotional freedom technique and all these techniques. How I got here, I actually was raised with a really interesting mother. My mother had a grand mal seizure when she was pregnant with me. And it was really scary. No one knew what was wrong. My dad, in the middle of the night, he heard her like moaning. He reached over and touched her, and her body was like stiff as a board. So they called the ambulance, took her to the hospital, couldn't figure out what was wrong, sent her to a neurologist who basically examined her and said, we don't know what's wrong with you. We don't know why you had this, but take these pills for 2 years and then come back and see me. Well, she called my grandmother because she was pregnant with me at the time. And she said, I'm so scared to put these in my body. What if it's not good for the baby? My grandmother said, don't you dare put those in your body. Come and see me. I just found this amazing chiropractor / naturopathic physician. It's the town north of us. So my mother drove up there, saw this wonderful doctor who became like our family doctor for years to come. And his name was Dr. Long. And he just put her on supplements, did some gentle adjustment. I was born strong and healthy. Fast forward to the time when I was like 8 years old, I was taking ballet lessons. And I came home one day and I said, Mom, did you know Miss Gossman has a son my age, but he doesn't go to school, regular school. He comes home on this bus. And I don't know how he could be my age because he can't even talk. And, he was mentally handicapped. So my mom proceeds to tell me that at the time she went to the neurologist, there was another woman at the same neurologist who had also had a grand mal seizure at exactly the same time, same number of months along in pregnancy as my mother. She took the pills. My mother didn't take the pills. And who knows if that's why her child was born with these issues. But it led to this whole, sort of beginning of our lifestyle. As a child, my mother was so into organic gardening, into health and wellness and fitness. She grew these gigantic organic gardens and we did juice cleanses and all this stuff. So health and fitness has always been a part of my life. And then I got into real estate later and did really well with real estate. But I always wanted to know what made people tick. It was funny because even when I was selling real estate, people would sit down with me and say, I'd start talking to them and they'd say, can you write that down? I was writing life programs, life plans for people. And so I thought, I want to go back and get my psychology degree because I can see sort of a clear pathway for people to transform very quickly. And I started taking classes, but then I was also building houses, for investment purpose and things. And my cabinet guy showed up one day and he'd been heavy and he'd lost a whole bunch of weight. I said, Tony, how did you lose all that weight so fast? You look amazing. He goes, well, I stopped smoking. I got hypnotized and I stopped smoking. I was like, yeah, but aren't you supposed to gain weight when you stop smoking? And he said, yes, but my hypnotherapist hypnotized me to not crave cigarettes and not want to eat anymore. He goes, so I can sit around in a bar. My friends can be smoking. I don't overeat. He goes, it's been amazing. I listened to the audio for 30 days. And I was like, that's it. That's what I love that. I love like getting to the heart of the problem and being able to sort of hack into your subconscious mind and go, create these results or get past habits or create new habits. And so I was hooked. So I went back to an alternative school, the biggest holistic school in the country, one of them, and just studied everything on, life coaching, hypnotherapy, clinical hypnotherapy, took so much coursework and became certified and opened a practice. And my clients, the reason I wrote my first book, Pure Thoughts for Pure Results, How Messy Thinking Can Make or Break Your Life, is because I was having such profound effect on my clients. It was almost shocking me. I mean, right from the beginning, even as a new practitioner. And I think part of it is because I believed in it so much and it was sort of like, I felt like what I was meant to do. But people were coming to me, people who had been depressed their entire lives. I had this woman who called me, shared me on a radio talk show one day, and And she said, you're my final hope. I've been depressed my entire life. I don't know what else to do. So we did some sessions. We started with, a life coaching intake, did some emotional freedom technique, which is a protocol of tapping on your, nervous system, basically, on meridian points. And then I, worked through some of these issues. She'd been severely abused as a child. She had these memories of like her mother picking her up by the ankle and swinging her around and like flinging her into the refrigerator, like horrible stuff. Mm. She woke up every day feeling like, I just want to die. I have no reason to live. Even though she was actually kind of successful at her job, she was in insurance, she still like didn't feel like she should live every day. It was a really sad thing. So after 5 sessions, she wrote me this amazing email and said, I'm so thankful I heard you on the radio that day. I can honestly tell you, I am completely free of the crushing depression I've experienced my entire life. I can wake up now and have a bad day, and it's just a bad day. So, those stories were just so amazing to me, and I wanted to share them. So I wrote my first book, and that's why I did my program called Skinny Life. Ultimately, I created this program called Skinny Life. The Real Skinny on Fit, Slim, and Healthy. And then I wrote a book about that called Skinny Life, The Secret to Physical, Emotional, and Spiritual Wellness. And, it's whatever you're trying to change in your life, you have to create it from the inside out. Even if you want to be a fit, slim person, right? You can go on every program and say you're going to do things, but if you don't start to tap in to those hidden programs that you're sometimes not aware of, those programs that keep shutting you down and keep making you feel unworthy, or keep you identifying with a body type that you really don't need to hang on to anymore, you probably will keep going back into the same cycle again and again. So I've said a lot. I should let you say something. Go ahead.
No, it's interesting. I would sort of class myself as a principles guy. And so when you talk about transforming from the inside out, and you say that it can happen so quickly, what are the principles that allow that to happen? Is it the connection to the making the unconscious conscious that then creates an awareness level of it so that you can be understanding that it's there? Like, what are some of the principles that allows that to happen?
No, it's a really good question. So what happens in our life, our brain works for efficiency. Okay. So, things happen and you say you experience negative events and, someone calls you fat or something, or someone says, that doesn't look really good on you. You should maybe cover up, or like whatever it could be. And some of these things happen again and again. So you might not even remember the incident, but your brain stores that information. And so you start to get programmed, over time. You have these programs inside, and they're sort of running at the subconscious level, because there's no way our brain can, at the conscious level of awareness, be, have all that stuff at the top of mind, or we wouldn't be able to function. We need, our totally conscious mind to be functioning, like taking care of us throughout the day. But all that stuff gets stored at a really deep level. And so it's really important to stop and take the time to dig deeper. And that's what, these processes do. First of all, sort of doing that coaching intake and really figuring out where in your life, what's tripping you up, what's happening, what are the themes that are playing out again and again that you're not successful at? Is it relationships? Is it fitness and health? Is it career? You just keeps finding sabotage or a lack of success. And then when you look at those, like using the natural states of your mind, so your mind already goes into hypnosis all day long. I'm a Christian, and some of my really Christian friends will be like, "Oh, isn't hypnosis bad? It's like it's some kind of voodoo." It's not. It's very simple. It's just using this brain that God gave us, and using the cycles more deliberately, more to our advantage, to create our best life and our best life experience. I think that's what God wants for all of us. And so, your brain goes through different brainwave states throughout the day. So it's beta, alpha, theta, and delta. So if you're sitting there driving, your brain wave actually slows down, and you start to drive automatically because it's already stored in your subconscious mind how to drive. You're not thinking, okay, I'm going to come up to this stop sign and I'm going to have to put my foot on the brake and I'm going to turn the wheel like this, right? So there's all this automatic activity that's already stored in your brain because you've done it so many times. And same thing when you're watching TV, like you drop into sort of a high alpha state, and that's where you're more suggestible. So when we see things on TV, that's why we can watch a beer commercial and be like, you know, beer manufacturers would like us to think we're more sexy and we have more friends when we drink this kind of beer. You know, that's really what they're doing. It's sort of a bit of a brainwashing. But we can use that to our advantage because, you know, when we were little, when we were young, when we had emotional experiences, those emotions also lock memories into not just your mind, but your body. So oftentimes, like my clients will tell me, you know, they'll feel it in their stomach or in their body or get sick, you know, something will happen again and they'll feel it somewhere in their heart, you know, or their throat. And your body actually records memory throughout, you know, your entire body, not just your brain. They say your stomach is your second brain because there are some of the same types of neural connections. So it's really just about understanding how amazing and complex our body and minds are, and then learning to use them to our greatest benefit.
If you were thinking about, and would you call it treating somebody? Is that what you would call it in your practice,
Right.
or
Coaching or working with
coaching?
somebody, I would say, you know, working with someone. Yeah.
Okay, so if you were working with somebody, there are clearly techniques, and you just define some principles. How much does that change based on the person? You know, so are you going off of essentially a foundational playbook, and then you're saying, okay, let's take the intake to understand the person well enough to start the process? Or because one of the things that I'm always curious about is there's so much out there that basically says, oh, just do this and you're good to go.
Right.
But that's so templated and it doesn't seem to be that effective for people. So you
Right.
as a practitioner, how much are you taking the individuality of the client into the mix when you start the process?
Right. I think that's really important. I think you really have to understand who you're dealing with. Now, some problems are universal. If you like, I have audios on my Crystal Vision Life site, you know, they're like freedom from anxiety, living free of depression, Garden of New Beginnings, things like that. There are some universal issues that if you listen, especially those are guided visualization using hypnotherapy techniques. So if you listen to those in a relaxed state, you're going to get benefit for sure. You'll get benefit. And some of these other, you know, techniques you're probably talking about are probably have some benefit, but I think to get some really deep lasting results, it's so important to do the one-on-one work with a coach. And, you know, to get to know, like a coach, you want to get to know your client. And I know, and I think this is the case for a lot of coaches, you know, I develop an intuition. You know, after I sit with someone for a little while, I'll start to feel them. And I don't, you know, I know some coaches have told me the same thing. Like people would go, whoa, how did you know that? I'll just do sudden, like a summary. And I remember this guy looked at me and he's like, I never told you any of that. How did you know that? And it's just like tapping into someone, you know, and really like you start to understand patterns and start to understand through the things they say and the things that have happened, the deeper sort of programming that's inside. So I absolutely think to get the best results, you need to really work with a coach.
How much would you say, let me ask it universally and then ask you specifically for you, but how much do coaches let bias get in the way, or how many coaches inject things into their clients? Is that pretty common?
You know, it's such an individual thing. I think it certainly could happen. Like, I think there are coaches who probably have sort of pat, you know, answers. Oh, this is what you need, and this is my program. And I think it's important. It's important to understand the tools and techniques that you have to help someone, but not get locked into just that one size fits all because yeah, everyone's life experience, there are different triggers. And sometimes that's why I love the tool of like hypnotherapy because, you know, going into sort of a relaxed state, you can figure some of those things out. Some of those things come out. I've had clients call me, I mean, with some of the most amazing things. I had a client call me, it was about 2 hours after she had a session with me. She came running back and she's like, I got to see you right now. I got to see you right now. It's so important. And she said, She went home after our session and she just was walking past a closet. She was going through a terrible divorce. The reason she came in was just anxiety and this intense, difficulty she was going through. So she goes home and she's walking past a closet, and all of a sudden her eye flies up to this yearbook, her middle school yearbook. She pulls it off a shelf for some reason, opens it up, starts going through it, and sees a photo of a boy 2 years older than she was at the time, because it was like a high school, middle school mix kind of thing. He was at least 2 years older. She suddenly had this entire repressed memory come flooding back to her. She was in the woods. She stayed home from school one day. Her mom let her stay home. She was a twin. She wasn't feeling really well, but she was kind of a tomboy. She was playing in the woods behind her house. This was in Virginia. And this mean boy who was several years older, for whatever reason, was back there and found her, and he raped her. And she didn't have a good relationship with her mother. She felt like her mother didn't love her as much as she loved her twin brother. So she never told her mother because she felt like her mother would be mad at her. And this happens, to abuse victims. It's interesting how some of these things come out. Now, we hadn't focused on anything like that. Like, all we did was go into that deeper state of mind, that where everything is stored. That's what I'm talking about. And once we open that up, she didn't want to come out of it. And it's not a scary thing. It's just, she was very relaxed. So I let her relax a little more, and then we just counted her back. But she obviously accessed a part of her mind that was really important for her to access. Ultimately, because of that information, she repaired her relationship with her mother, because she realized that even though she had this perception that her mom didn't love her, of course she loved her, and she didn't love her brother more. Sometimes parents might be worried about a child more because that child needs more help or whatever, and the other child's more independent. All these things that we learn about, human behavior, and it's not necessarily always about us when we're feeling that rejection. But it's just fascinating what you can learn about each person.
So sort of follow up, how do you remove your own biases from this process?
That's such a good question. I mean, I think for me, I'm really good at tuning into somebody. I really am pretty good at like not projecting my own problems. And maybe it's because I've seen so many different scenarios, and I recognize, not everything's so different. Everyone's, even though there are universal issues, everyone's personal journey is just a little bit different. Gosh, how do I do that? I'm trying to figure out if there's actually a way. I mean, I'm just aware that I need to be really tuned in to what that person's journey, because it's unique. They've walked their own path. And so I need to, the more I tune into that, the more I'll be able to help them.
It's almost like the meditative, where it's not, you're not trying to be still, you're trying to focus on what is happening inside of your brain. You know what I mean? So instead of trying to be still, you're just saying, am I still or not?
Right. You're just observing. It's right. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. It's like observation. Well, I'm also certified with the Chopra Center of Wellbeing as a meditation instructor. I told you, I really took a path where I wanted to learn everything and do it all, because I wanted to help people so much. But what they say about meditation is you just observe without judgment. And that's important as a coach. But it's that just what you were talking about, observing, don't judge, but notice everything.
Oh, I love that. I've heard two very different sides of the ball on this one, where some people say no judgment, and then other people say you do judge. It's really about your reaction to the judgment. Where do you sort of sit on that? Can you actually remove, because isn't judgment somewhat subconscious anyways? Isn't it just an automatic reaction? So where do you really sit on that?
I get what you're saying. Like, if you want to be in a learning state, and it depends on what you're doing. As human beings, we do have to be able to sort of analyze from like a value to protect our values, like understanding your values and how whatever this is fits into your values. So I think the first step is becoming clear about your own values. So if you see something that is in alignment with your values, or you observe, then you observe. So you observe something that is either in line with your values, or it may not be in line with your values. You don't have to hate it, be angry, be triggered. You just make a decision. It's not in your values. So it's more about that level of peace, sort of.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'd love to segue a little bit, because both you and your husband are prolific creators of things. So what is it about, whether it's book creation or course creation, or I know with Mark, he just loves the marketing creation as well. Like, what is it about that creation process that you guys have fallen in love with, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. For me, I kind of realized these things that could help people, and I want to share it. I want to share it so badly, and I want to make it so accessible. Like, I can't see every person live and in person. So I created some really deep programs that I think could be the next best thing, because it's important for people to have those tools, So I try to do that when I can, is just figure out ways that I can share some of the things, because I feel like it's such a gift and a blessing to have these awarenesses to help you through life, and to be able to have these tools and techniques to get you through things, so you're not stuck, so you can get past things, because life continues to come at us, and it always will. And we just need to have a way to nurture ourselves and some tools and techniques to keep moving and become unstuck. And I think that's one of the reasons we just did our recent, most current project, our book, Ask, The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny, because it's what we realized about people. Most people are over endowed with talent and ability and likability, and they want great things for themselves. I mean, we're all over endowed with talent, but we found the difference between those who were, kind of getting mediocre results, and the people who were really getting dramatically successful results. It came down to your ability to ask. I mean, if you could reduce it, we started talking about it one day, and we said, what is the single thing? And it really is being able to ask. And then we started getting deeper in it as we started to put together the ideas for the book. And we're like, how is that defined? And we defined it as asking yourself, ask others, and ask God. And each of those channels is equally important, we found, to try to master in your life. Because the ask yourself part, it's what we're talking about. It's the reflective journey. What worked about what just happened? How am I feeling about what just happened? What is not resonating with me? What emotions am I feeling about this situation, and why? Is my interpretation the truth, or is it just my old baggage that I'm dealing with? And all of these things that can really help give us clarity and get us unstuck, and even things like moving forward in careers and things like, what am I best at? What's my purpose? All of these things, that's the reflective journey of asking yourself to keep getting a new illumination, a plan, a solution. And we just felt like this was so important to share with people, because if they don't know it, everyone can learn this. Everyone can learn how to ask. But most of us have been shut down. That's the truth.
Shut down how? Are we talking we asked as kids and people didn't answer, or what do you mean by that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So as kids, we're all expert askers. We're born with this deep curiosity. We want to know, who, when, where, what, how, and so we ask, and then we want more. We want more and more and more. We want everything, because we're these clean, untainted little human spirits that come to life. And that's how we're supposed to be. But then over time, your parents are, that's enough. I don't want to hear it. Don't ask again. And then you go to school, and the teacher's the authority. You only ask if you're called upon. And maybe you start asking friends, and you get humiliated or, made fun of. And then you start work, or, go to jobs. So often, companies don't want to hear feedback from their employees. Some of the companies now, like Google and whatever, they want to hear feedback, and they take ideas. But so many companies, you've got supervisors and managers who are just, I'm in charge. don't ask questions, just do what you're told. And so I think over time, yeah, we develop these, what we call the 7 roadblocks to asking. And we talk about these in the book. And they are unworthiness, naivete, doubt, excuses. Like that's all about kind of stubborn pride. Like I don't need any help, not ask anyone. Fear, which is just terror of being rejected, because human beings need love. And so some people are so terrified of being rejected because they feel like they're going to lose love or approval. So they just won't ever ask. And then there's also pattern paralysis, where you just get so stuck in your pattern that you just don't ever change it. You just don't even ask, is this really working? Is there a better way to do this? Am I really happy in this pattern, this thing that I do every day? And then the last one is disconnection. And I think that's one of the saddest of all, because disconnection is really about the roadblock of disconnection, is about not even being in touch with the dreams in your heart. You just aren't even connected to that anymore. So you just don't ask for anything. You've kind of given up, sort of an apathy stage. And that's really sad, because Mark and I really believe that every single person has a destiny in this life. And it's probably so much more glorious and amazing than you can imagine, but it just requires like staying connected and continuing to ask all the questions that will get you down the road.
When you think about the outcome of asking, is that more of a creative outcome or more of an implementation outcome, or does it not matter?
So the outcome of asking, you mean like asking others? So each of those channels is quite different, because the asking yourself really establishes what you want, who you are, and where you're going. But, then asking others is where you take it out to the world, and people become one another's greatest resource, right? There's something really beautiful, not just about asking, but being able to grant someone's request. And in the research that we did for the book, which we did a lot, studies show that if you ask someone, they're highly likely to grant your request to help you with something, whether it's advice, just help in any way. But people are so scared to ask. These roadblocks keep them from doing so. People are 80% more likely to grant your request if you just ask.
It's fascinating. Every time I speak somewhere or I do a podcast or whatever, I always give my personal email or my work email, depending on the context. And I always follow it up by saying, I don't think that many people are going to send me an email or ask me any questions. And like clockwork, it's probably less than 3% of people will actually follow up with a question. And it's unbelievable to me, because
crazy.
There's so much that you can be gained. I mean, now I totally understand where people might feel rejection or worry or fear of rejection.
Right.
But especially in today's day and age, with direct messaging and emails being so accessible to people, it's such an easy thing to do. But I agree with you, so few people actually take the step to do it. I'd love to ask you this question in the context of both your book and your practice. When you think about longevity of, let's call it feeling great, moving towards your destiny, etc., how much of that is the initial change versus the conditioning of that change?
So you mean if you're talking about having sustained good feelings as you go along the journey, you're saying, is it likely that those will just be in the beginning and then the good feelings will drop off?
Yeah, I know a lot of people would say, okay, great, hypnotherapy, NLP, all these different techniques. It's like, I get it, and then I go home and then I don't feel the same way anymore. So how do you bridge the gap between the initial change moment, or by the way, am I misinterpreting the change moment, and then continuing to move in a positive direction from that moment forward?
Well, I think it's important as coaches to help people understand that this is a journey. It's not just, you're going to have these really high epic moments in life, but then you're going to have the lows, and then you're going to have sort of the neutral in between. That is life. And so it's so important to keep reinforcing these practices and this learning. That's why Mark and I start every day with like this prayer meditation time where we ask each other questions, we reflect, we do the reflective questions, we ask, what are our priorities, what's really meaningful, and then, you know, the asking God part, I'm always asking like, God, what is my greatest expression for which you made me? I mean, I think if we all ask that, what is your greatest expression for which I was made? And it kind of puts a whole different context, you know, in your life and world. It gives you a whole different context to operate from. And I think that's important, to look at yourself in the big picture, because life is more meaningful. Then it's not just about, oh my gosh, if I don't make this much money, I'm going to be sad, you know, or I failed. It's bigger than that. It's about everything. It's about how you touch and affect people. It's about what kind of human being you are. It's about so many things, and each one is important, you know, and that gets you excited and keeps you lit up about life, that there's this whole sort of smorgasbord of life that you can be partaking of. It includes money and friends and relationships and contribution and all of these things, staying fit, staying healthy, using your body the best way you can, you know.
It seems like so much of this is about removing the, maybe, I hope I can say this the right way, the anticipated fear of what might happen, and just saying, I'm going to have up and downs. I am going to have challenges and difficulties. And it's like, and that's okay. But it seems like so many people are so worried about what might be a down moment that it almost paralyzes them to take a step forward. Is there truth to that?
Oh boy, I think that is so true. And I'm glad you brought that up because, right, it's just part of it. And I think in those times when you feel down, if you just keep going and, you know, all the techniques, like really count your blessings. I mean, the gratitude exercise is so important every day. That's what we do, because it's almost like if you don't practice gratitude daily, and I think this is one of the most important things to remember. First of all, you'll feel terrible all the time, because no matter how good you have it, you'll never recognize it. If you're not practicing daily gratitude, you're not even taking into account every great thing you have. I mean, there are blind people out there every day who are trying to survive. We have perfect sight. There are people without, you know, hands and arms and legs and feet. We get to walk around and move and do everything, you know. There are people with so many issues, people who weren't born in this country. Gosh, we were born in this country. There's so much opportunity, right? You get to create your own life. I mean, if you count your blessings, even start with the smallest things, you know, the people in your life that you love and who love you back. There are people who are just dying of loneliness, you know? So as you start to reflect on all the things you already have, you start to feel rich, you know, because it's like, wow, I'm not so bad off. Yeah, I'm trying to create more, because that's just spirit jabbing you in your soul saying, you know, keep expanding, just like the universe is still expanding, right? Our universe is actually growing and expanding. And I think we're just part of that creation of universe. We always want to expand. So we get impatient sometimes. We want more and more and more, just like we did when we were kids, right? But it's important not to get bogged down in that and realize we're just in a process. We're in a journey. It's going to come. Keep going. Don't give up, because in those moments when you start letting the negativity in, now you're sort of visualizing the opposite of what you need to be visualizing. Because remember, we talked about your entire existence is created from the inside out. It really is. And a lot of people take their cues from outside of themselves and think, this has happened, this has happened, this is my life. But you have to reverse that and go inside and start imagining, use the power of your imagination, imagine wonderful things happening every day in rich detail. And as you start to do that, you'll be amazed. And you start to reverse engineer those visions. Like, how did I get there? How many people did I talk to? What did I do? And as you reverse engineer it, you start to see your life unfolds in a whole different way. You do have more successes, more successes, and more breakthroughs.
Interesting. How important is language to you, and the specific words that you choose to say, whether it's to yourself, whether it's internally as you're asking, or talking to other people, or talking to your clients?
I think language is really critical, because you want to affirm really positive things. I mean, language is very creative. It really is very creative. And you don't want to start using language that pulls you down in any way. You know, and you, if you're, say you're dirt poor and you don't have two nickels to rub together, you're not going to say, I'm the richest man in the world, because your mind's not going to believe that. But what you can say is, every day I'm prospering. Every day I'm getting better. Every day I'm learning something more, you know, more how to expand my prosperity and my abundance. Every day I'm finding a bigger way to contribute and provide value for which I can get paid. You know, and those things, all of those positive affirmations. So your subconscious mind will resonate with those, where if you say, I'm a billionaire, if you don't have any money,
It may not stick in your brain.
that's right. Your subconscious mind is going to fight you on that, but it won't fight you when you say, I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm getting better every day. I'm
Interesting.
accumulating more and more wealth all the time.
So is that, would you call that sort of a first principle? Is that the language has to be, I don't know if this is the right way of saying it, within reason? I mean, is that?
Yeah, I mean, the language has to be congruent with your vision. So it's very affirming to your vision. It has to be really congruent with your vision. But of course, you don't want the language to be absurd, because your mind is really smart. Like, yeah, I was saying, you know, if I don't have two nickels to rub together, I'm not going to go, I'm a billionaire. I'm a billionaire. You know, because it's like there won't be any congruence there, you know. So it has to be congruent with your vision and congruent with where you are right now in the journey.
Gotcha. Okay, I'd love to sort of finish with this. In your book, how is it structured? Are you walking people through a consistent process, or how do you walk people through building those habits of asking?
Right. We put the process, we weave the process throughout the book, but and we also have a lot of stories in the book, but the way we broke down the book was we cover all areas, like asking in, you know, your personal, basically your purpose, asking it for health and wellness, asking for career, and asking, you know, basically for your spiritual purpose. And so it's broken down like that. And then throughout the book, we weave all of these techniques, and the stories are so powerful because, you know, in hypnotherapy, we use a lot of metaphors, okay, for a strong hypnosis session, because the brain relates to stories and metaphors. I mean, metaphors are patterns. They're patterns that our brain instantly recognizes. So when you read about someone's story who's gone through this amazing asking journey, you didn't have to live it yourself to understand it, and you feel the emotions and you learn the lessons with those people. And it's really a beautiful experience. So that's why the stories are so important. And then we reflect on the golden nuggets of asking. And then we start off, we started off by this, we call it the fable of Michaela. And I wrote this fable because I wanted to start with, it's this fictional young woman named Michaela. And she starts off, and it's set like in the times of kings and queens. And she starts off, she works at a rock quarry, and her life is heavy and miserable, and she's just hauling rocks every day. And then she has no hope, no light in her world. She's lost both of her parents. She's lost her home. So she's sleeping in a grove. And one night she falls into an exhausted sleep after her work, and this being comes to her. And the being takes her on this journey and shows her this golden asking bridge, and how she'll just start asking questions. So she can't get this out of her mind. So from that day forward, her life starts to change. She starts to be more curious about people. She starts to look around. She starts to wonder. She starts to ask questions about her, you know, ask questions of herself, ask questions of other people. And it's this magical journey where everything unfolds. And by the end of Michaela's, by the end of the fable, it's like her whole life is transformed. And I wanted to put that in there in the beginning. Mark and I wrote it, and Mark's like, this has to go in the beginning, because it's such a model. It's a great model for your brain to experience the fable of Michaela and then see how that asking journey unfolds when you do it. So it's kind of magical.
Do you find that the story first is stronger, or the context followed by the story is stronger, or do you not necessarily think that matters?
We like to make points, you know, to kind of say, like, here's what's coming, and then splash the stories throughout. We just think the stories give it so much strength and
Mm-hmm.
give deeper understanding. So, so we give points, give stories, give recaps, more points, more techniques, stories, um, throughout the whole thing.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Crystal. This was great. I would love to continue the conversation with you. But where can people find you? Where can they find the book?
So yeah, the book's at Amazon.com right now. Please get the book. It's a life changer. It really is. And also we're going to do this really cool thing after people have had a chance to read the book a little bit. We're going to do the world's biggest book club discussion. So it'll be like a private chat room. Everybody will be led to. So when you buy the book, go to send the receipt to reception@markvictorhansen.com, reception@markvictorhansen.com, and just send us the receipt. And then we will send an invitation to go into the book chat room. And you can find some of my stuff on crystalvisionlife.com. So if you need some extra help, just getting past anxiety, depression, that sort of thing. And then also connect with us on social media, Crystal Dwyer Hansen and Mark Victor Hansen. Yeah, I love to stay in touch with people. And so, I love to know how people are doing. I love that connection. So yeah, love to stay in touch.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for coming on. This was great, and have a great rest of your day. And
Yeah.
talk soon.
Sure. All right. Talk soon.